We want to put a vision of a government where the role is to devise and implement objective criteria. And I think anything less will compromise Melbourne's livability and the investment and the jobs that flow from being the world's most livable city. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Brian. And Brian's agreed to take some questions. There's microphones being put in various positions now, so anyone got a question? Let me start off. 100,000 people a year coming into Melbourne, Brian, and I think you've heard from before, we've got to put them somewhere. We've got some councils that think that anything over 2 storeys is a skyscraper, and we've got other people believing that any extension of the urban growth boundary is going to pillar our environmental situation as we stand. Where do we put 100,000 people a year?
Most of those 100,000 people now, a vast majority of them end up on our growth areas, and you know, Melbourne 2030 try to bring that back to 50%. There are a number of issues. We can't keep putting people on the urban fringe. There will be continuous growth there, and there will be a lot of development be there, and that'll be the primary source of housing. But as a state, we can't afford the infrastructure. We do need to have that balance and make sure that there is plenty of housing and plenty of infill development. And as I said, my issue with the zones is there's no state government leadership. There's no requirement for councils to either take into account the type of housing that they'll need in 5 years in terms of an ageing population, or indeed the growth in their population. And I think we do need to see more leadership when it comes there, so that we can get that balance right between growth on Melbourne's new suburbs and infill development.
Okay, Councillor Anita Howard, your hand is up, from Port Phillip, so one of those councils that obviously affected by people wanting to live there because it's such a lovely area.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Brian, for your gloss on the ALP's policy approach, if you're elected. As people might not know, that the City of Port Phillip has gone from an inner urban council that was just trucking along nicely into a growth council with the Fisherman's Bend Urban Renewal Zone on its doorstep and part of its municipality. We have 4 precincts which will accommodate, along with Lorimer, which is in the City of Melbourne, up to 80,000 people by 2050 and 40,000 people expected to be working there. And as such, and as you've mentioned, Brian, it is crucial that livability for these residents and workers is attainable and is a fact. And of great concern...
there's a question coming, Brian.
There is a question coming.
Yeah.
The question is, what is your stance on, or your view on Fisherman's Bend development, but particularly council supports an extension of the Collins Street tram across into Fisherman's Bend along Fennell Street and Plummer Street, which will, as early infrastructure, will frame the development that occurs there. Do you support council's position on that? Thank you.
Sounds like a policy bid there.
Yeah.
Now look, there's no question that whether it's Docklands or Eagate or Fisherman's Bend, that, as I said, we need substantial growth in those areas, and in a sense, you know, when people complain about overdevelopment, we can balance that by substantial development in those areas. I look at the work that the council did around Montague, and I think that was a great bit of work and a great model for what I would like to see around Fisherman's Bend, and that is a vision which sort of says that this is the growth we want to have in the time frame we want to have. It's a model that was based on work that the council did with its community, a model that allocated areas for, a model that should allocate areas for open space and that livability notion, the notion of a design. So I think you can, and Montague, the work that you did there demonstrated, I think that you can have a properly designed outcome. That means you've got a great livability outcome in 10, 15, 20 and 30 years, and is a model that provides the sort of growth in those areas that we need. In terms of the tram, and I reckon the tram and the East-West Link are great examples of why you shouldn't have politicians devising these things on the back of an envelope where your business case is common sense. You know, it's a prime example where you've got an announcement today which is different to the announcement that you had 2 weeks ago, which is different to the announcement that you had 6 months ago. It's a prime example of why we need an Infrastructure Victoria to give you a bit more rigour in terms of what the priorities are, so that it's not based simply on, on some obscure, unknown objective.
Okay, Tony Johnson, I know you've got a question.
Thanks, Tony.